Well, good morning. Yes, it is Tuesday morning, and you are at Growth Point. You've tuned into Growth Point with George, growing through life, going and growing through life. Yes, now we grow through life. We need to grow in every single day. There's a growth happening within our life. Sometimes we can't see the growth above, but you know what? Beneath is the roots growing. And yes, we are speaking about fear today. Fear will always cause one to hide. Notice what fear does. Fear takes you outside of the presence of God. It again puts you on the outskirts of God. Again, fear doesn't allow us to come close to God because we become fearful of God, of the judgment of God over our lives because of the sin that is in our lives. That is why we hide from God. Now listen, the spirit of fear first entered into the heart of man in the Garden of Eden, in the most perfect place in the world. Notice this, in the most perfect environment. There the enemy was able to infiltrate into the heart of man, and there corrupted man's heart and turned man away from God. How do we know that? Well, listen to what Genesis 3 verse 10 says. Adam says, I heard you, God, walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked. His nakedness revealed his sin. He once more revealed and realized that he stepped out of the plan and the purpose of God for his life, realized that he was naked. No longer did righteousness cover him, but now he needed to cover himself because of the unrighteousness of that what he had fallen into. He took off the garment of righteousness and put on the garment of unrighteousness. You see, when fear enters into one's heart, it strips one of righteousness, leaving one spiritually naked. That is why we fear God. That is why in sin we run from God, not to God, because again, as I said, we fear the judgment of God. Do you know what happened at the cross of Calvary? Jesus took all judgment that God would place upon you, placed upon him. He took it upon himself. Why? That again, you could come into the presence of God, because there Jesus paid the penalty in full on your behalf. Now, that is a wonderful God. We do not have to fear God any longer. We don't have to walk around with fear in the hearts of entering into the presence of God, because again, this is what Jesus does. He stands in the presence of God as your intercessor, as your advocate on your behalf, pleading your case before God, because reminding God again, not that he has to remind him, but again, God looking at him saying, well, all judgment was placed upon my son, Christ Jesus, who hung upon the cross for the sin of humanity. Now, running from God will always lead one into dark places of unrighteousness. You see, as a result of Adam's fall, fear is the first emotion that develops in a human life. Notice that fear. Fear is one of those emotions that grow right from the beginning of a young age. Now, we can all testify of growing up with a spirit of fear becoming part of one's life. Not so? Can you remember the first time when fear gripped you? You see, we grew up fearing the dark. I was. Why? Because my family was always talking about ghost stories. I became fearful of the dark. And the one thing that I said, my kids, I will not raise them up in fearing the dark. And my boys never used to put lights on. They would walk around the night, in the middle of the night. Me growing up, no way would I do that. I had to overcome that fear by again coming to God and allowing God to heal those broken emotions of fear in my life. Now again, there were many things. My parents were very superstitious, and I grew up in a very superstitious home. Wouldn't walk under a ladder. That is one thing you wouldn't do. You wouldn't open up a umbrella in the house. It brought bad luck. So they said salt, if you threw salt down, you would have to throw it over your shoulder. I don't know why you had to do all these things, but you see what was happening again. Fear was growing inside of our lives because of all the superstition that was there. Ghost under the bed, or the tokolosh under the bed. The dentist, became fearful of the dentist. Man, I'm telling you, for years I was afraid of the dentist, wouldn't go near the dentist. Doctors and injections still today don't like that. The old lady down the road who was told that she was a witch and she would eat little boys. Come on, do you remember that? That fear had been instilled within our lives. The dog next door, the policeman on patrol. Now, it was told to me if I was naughty and I continue to be naughty, they will call the police for you. Did you ever have that growing up? Well, I did. Became fearful of policemen. Eventually, I married one. Yeah, Galia was a policewoman, and I met her as a young girl. Went into the police academy and became a policewoman for many years. So I overcame that fear. But listen, Franklin Roosevelt wrote, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." That is exactly what happens. You see, fear will destroy relationships, as we read the book of Genesis, where Cain killed his brother Abel. And still today, in society, we're seeing this happening. Why? Why there is so much hatred and bitterness within the world today? You know what? Fear. Fear is the cause. So today again, I want you to overcome fear. How do I overcome fear? By allowing faith to grow within my life. How do I allow faith to grow within my life? By allowing Jesus Christ to become part of my daily life.